I want just to come back to the traditional lending, introducing Ferran Minguella from BEI. So just to give a very, very short outline about the current ship lending situation. So the 75% of the ship lending market is held by European banks. The total worth amount of ship lending provided for shipping is more than $400 billion, exactly $430 billion, of which 75% provided by European bank, and among these, the largest, the wider chip of the cake is held by German banks, 44%. The first 20 banks represent the 90% of the ship lending market. Therefore, I mean that the problem of the ship lending, so it's a personal opinion, I am ready to state this opinion in face of everybody, is due to German banks. German banks now provide roughly $140 billion. And if you compare the internal German fleet in terms of tonnage, just above 100 million of deadweight, and compare with the Greek fleet, close to 300 million in terms of deadweight, we can state that the problem of the ship lending now is represented by German banks. German banks are a net exporter of credit. And this is a problem, because the problem of German banks jeopardize also the other systems. It's a personal opinion, but I think that is represented by figures and by data. I want to leave you, Ferran, to comment this and to get for the floor an opinion about this argument, and as a BI is helping the shipping to support the residual order book and or the development in the future. Please, I leave you to take the floor.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for inviting the EIV to present in this event. I will present, as you correctly said, the traditional banking that we offer to our clients in the shipping sector. But I will maybe start first giving a quick overview of what is the EIB, how do we operate, and then look a bit how we select our projects in the shipping sector, and then how we structure the financing for these projects selected. So we are the EU bank owned by the 28 member states. So actually our investments go very much in line with the EU policy. We are located in Luxembourg. We have 2,000 employees, but not only bankers. The difference between our banking and, we would say, the private banking is that we have also engineers specialized in each sector and economists, which we would be looking at the technical and economic return of each of our investments. So, for instance, in the shipping sector, when we will appraise a project, we will always have a credit analyst, but also an expert in the shipping sector, in-house specialist, and an economist. Basically, what we have to identify when financing a project is the eligibility towards the EU objectives. So here is mainly the overall picture for any projects. So being in a trans-European network, this would be in the shipping sector, any ships doing roads on those networks, ports involving those networks, etc. But also whatever it regards research and development, improving ships' engines, or environment also improvements would be eligible. The activity of the bank over the last 4 years, we have been doing a lot since the crisis started, and we will continue doing it. Last year we invested 50 billion, out of which around 15 were dedicated to the transport. But as you can see, for maritime, only 5% of this amount was used. So regarding transport and shipping, basically we follow our guidelines that are based on the EU objectives. So any development on the trans-European transport networks would be eligible for EIB financing. Any sustainable transport, or any foster model that would bring change from road to maritime transport. And this would also include improving the accessibility of big cargoes in ports, improving the links between ports and railways. Any of these infrastructure projects, we are always, most of the time, co-financiers of these projects. Together with the state, together with other banks, the structure may change depending on which initiative we are talking about. The other objectives that could be eligible for EIB financing is any kind of transport in convergent regions. So this may, in the shipping sector, concern islands, whatever internal transport that is foreseen there would be eligible. Ships or ports would be eligible for our finance. R&D to improve environmental aspects or consumption, or what we have been seeing during the first session this morning, would be eligible for EIB financing. So basically, just to give some examples of what we have been doing over these last years, we have been financing EU vessels. Main criteria being that they have roads that leave from an EU port and then ending up maybe in any continent, but always coming back to an EU port. And again, what we look at is that the environmental aspects of the ships that we are financing and the technologies that are used. Normally, we do not finance second-hand ships, but it could be that if there is an improvement that is done in those ships, it could fall under our eligibilities. So a reduction of emissions after doing works on second-hand ships could be eligible also for our finance. So here just we put some of the type of vessels we have been financing. So ro-ro vessels, ro-packs, but also cruise ships inside EU, but also outside. Okay, this is just more on R&D options that we could be financing. But maybe what I wanted to show you, and this is when a promoter or a company wants to have EIB financing, where do we encounter most of the time issues to have that project eligible for us? Most of the time it's linked to the procurement. We look very closely at the process that the company has been following. Here we give some figures, but we say that, okay, we would like to see that 5 shipyards have been contacted for the construction of the ships. We would like to see some European shipyards involved in this. All this documentation, procurement and environment is shared with the European Commission. So finally, it's the European Commission that will give a green light for us to give the financing to any of the ships. Ships can be built inside the EU, but also outside, as long as these criteria on procurement are followed. So once we have identified a ship, a port, or whatever infrastructure that we could finance, how we will organize our financing? We have 2 ways when we operate. We can go directly, or we can go intermediate. The main difference being, when we go directly, we need projects that are of a size bigger than, let's say, 50 million. And this is linked to the fact what I said before at the beginning. We are 2,000 people in Luxembourg, but we are covering Europe and also outside Europe. So we don't have the capacity to go small. What we have been doing for the shipping sector is that we have, in order to create a project, we have added up several ships, maybe of 50 million each, and we end up with more, with a project amount that would be then eligible for a direct finance. Otherwise, if we don't have that amount, we delegate to intermediary banks. In Italy, we work with around 30 banking groups, and all shipping projects that would be of a cost lower than 25 million would go through them. Again, the same criteria would be applied, but in this case, we would have to rely on the assessment of the intermediary banks. So, just to sum up, project requirements to be eligible for the EIB, the technically sound that will be checked by our engineers, the financial viability, economic return will also be checked, and then complying with environment and procurement regulations. So just in a small slide, how a EIB project would be appraised. Since a promoter contact us, we would first of all look at the eligibility of the project, and if we are within the criteria, then we would start the process looking at the economics, the financial position of the promoter, and so on, to identify the financial structure that can make the project feasible for us. And so this is the overall picture of what EIB is doing in the shipping. Me personally, I'm involved in the Italian market, and We, in the last years, have been involved in financing several ships. Most of the time, we cooperate with local banks, and this has been shown like a good solution for some of the promoters of these investments. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ferran. As you have heard up to now, we have so many different instruments. Some of them, of course, you know very well. I really feel that especially supranational institutions should try to have more means to be a bit more quick, a bit more agile in order to help entrepreneurs, because otherwise comes out to be something very bureaucratic approach and very difficult to go with. But of course this is done just because, not for EIB of course, but it's done just because you know, big project, very deeply known, and sometimes not the time to market is much more important. I really feel maybe Angelo was asking something like that when he wanted to talk about mini bond. Of course, the presentation of Mr. Autori was very technical, so he had to say which one has already been done, and I understand the two transactions are not so sexy for the shipping industry because it's just 3 million, but of course there is no limit to what we can do with the bonds, which just for the sake of the media are called mini. We could go also for higher, and my new job is also to give, to provide business for whatever industry without any limits. If you organize it in a fund like we are trying to do, of course the diversification is very important, so you can have a very, very big amount, but something like 20, 25, 30 million is completely in the opportunity that all the development decree offer to the industry.